Today I want to talk about this fescue patch back here and how it looked at summer stress with fungus and other things going on and how it turned out now and what I applied to get it there. We'll find that out here in just a second. Also want to go back in time though and talk about the process here back in the summer. Have some clips to show you and some new equipment to show you as well.
So there's a couple things I want to show you. We'll kind of start in the front and work our way back. Okay. Obviously you have your pin heights here to select your height. You have this little deal right here. I mean, this thing is a tank, is an absolute tank. This right here is your speed control. So what a lot of guys will do is they'll kind of have this like this, and then it's just fingertip. Okay. It takes a little while to get used to. The other thing we put on this is the automatic dump. All you got to do, press the button, the back automatically opens up. Oh my goodness. And out it goes. Awesome.
So I want to introduce you to the newest machine. I'm very pleased to be working with Exmark to be able to use this piece of equipment here at my property. Exmark reached out to me. We talked about some various different things and what might be the best fit for me in my property here. I specifically wanted to actually have a bagging system that I could use because I'm going to be doing a lot of renovation work. Being able to actually come through and pick it up and use the bagging system. This one actually has a power dump on it too, so you just press a button, that thing dumps open, which is really nice for me. Plenty more stuff too in the future as I explain more about this and how I'm going to use it and different things here throughout the property. The weather has drastically changed here today, and now it's down into the 50s for a high today and very windy. So I'm going to try to find a spot here that I can talk to you and not be into the wind with the microphone. So I'm going to do my best. First, as we go back with this fescue, I wanted to talk about some of the process of what was going on in the late summertime. The main fescue plots here that I have were getting really thick. I never thinned them out or done anything. They were on their third season as far as growth. So if you'll remember back then, I took this one fescue patch in the main plot here and I thinned it out very aggressively with my dethatcher. I got a bunch of junk out of there, and I also just tried to thin it out so that I could mow it better. What I found after that was that a lot of it was actually growing kind of over top of some of the other areas and smothering them, so there were some dead spots from that, and I'm going to show you today here in a second how that has recovered. What I wanted to compare that to was this other larger fescue plot and not doing a dethatching on it, but simply doing more of a scalp process. And in certain scenarios it really helps to kind of reset the grass, especially if you're going to want to change your height of cut. So I was at about 3 inches on this larger patch, maybe slightly higher during June, July, and it was just getting too thick over here too. So I used the mower to bring down the height of cut, and what I found with scalping is that if you can get it about 1/4 to 1/2 inch under where you'd like to keep your height of cut, so if you wanted to be at 2 inches, if you can get it down to 1.5 inches or 1.75 inches, then let that grass recover back up to that 2-inch mark there. It's going to hide kind of a lot of that initial scalp. It's going to start to grow back out just slightly enough to make it look a lot better. So that's what I recommend instead of spending your time going at 2 inches and just continually cutting there time after time after time. I found that the recovery is better if you go slightly under that, then let the grass come back up to that mark that you want to be cutting at. So that's what I did here. I wanted to be at 2 inches or right around 2 inches if I could. And so I went underneath that and then I let it start to recover. Now it's going to look bad at the beginning, no doubt about that, but it will recover and it will start to look good. So what did I apply to this plot to make it recover so quickly? Well, actually, the only thing that I applied was 2 applications of Maxer about 3 weeks apart. So this is a granular fertilizer. It's simply nitrogen 2500, no phosphorus, no potassium in this one. And I started up my irrigation and I started watering this, and we got just a couple of rainfalls in there to help as well, but mostly just irrigation, fertilizer, started mowing consistently again at that 2-inch mark. The results may surprise you there, but what I want you to remember is that a lot of times grass just needs fertilizer, just needs water, and it just needs proper mowing. Lots of fancy stuff out there right now, I know, that are telling you need to apply this and that to your lawn to make it look better, but just remember the basics. Nitrogen is always needed each season to make your grass really look its best. Sometimes phosphorus and potassium are important depending on what is in your soil, definitely, but remember that nitrogen is always going to be needed. Water is always going to be needed for it to look good, and proper mowing is very, very important as well. So after that scalp, I consistently mowed it at that height that I wanted it. The more that you can consistently mow and just barely take off that tip of the grass, the better it is going to look long term. Remember that you also need to start with good grass to begin with. If you're trying to make your 1950s original lawn look like these new cultivars, it's probably not going to get quite there. So remember that too. Over here on this plot that I was more aggressive with, you'll see how much it has recovered as well. These fescues that I do have in here are some of the spreading varieties. However, I've never found them to be very aggressive. But what they also do very, very well that a lot of people may not think about is called tillering. Tillering is when that one grass plant, if you have a bunch type plant like fescue here, starts to grow many, many leaves off of that plant, and it gets thicker looking and it gets better looking just because that original plant can tiller and put a lot of leaves on it. What's happening here too is that a lot of aggressive tillering is happening. So those plants that were recovering, the plants that were still there, have started putting a lot of leaves out and a lot of shoots out. Keep this in mind that on these newer fescues, on a lot of the ryegrass too, they tiller aggressively and they start to make things look a lot more full when that recovery happens. I do see a few thin spots here yet, but I'm gonna wait until spring to see how this looks and see how it comes out of the winter season. But I'm pretty impressed with how the recovery has happened on this too without doing any seeding or overseeding. Same things have been applied here, granular nitrogen. Also, I did a few applications of equalizer, which is a soluble fertilizer, onto these, and that was sprayed on there. But really, again, just fertilizer, just water, and just mowing have given me these recovery results. A quick update on the big field that I seeded. It is growing in nicely. It's been quite a chore to try to get some water on this because we have not had any consistent rainfall whatsoever. But we did take off the blankets yesterday, and I will say I definitely would not recommend this type of blanket if you are going to want to remove it. It just is such a pain. They are really supposed to stay in place, and I think that there's a reason for that. They just don't remove very well. It's hard to get all of the material out of there. A lot of it sticks down to the ground and it's stuck in the grass. Even though I took these off a little earlier than I did the last time, pretty much same results, and when you had 38,000 square feet of them to remove, it was not a fun day yesterday for sure. I took a couple photos here, so the straw, that does a lot better job of coming out of there. There are some strings and some things in that straw matting that kind of aren't great to remove, but it still comes out way easier than this other wood fiber material does. I think that these are really great for erosion control and keeping the seed in place, and it did a great job of helping germination, but I would not recommend what Kelsey and I did yesterday, which is spending a whole day pretty much taking these out, and there's still a whole lot left on the ground. So I'm gonna have to kind of rake some of these areas out. It's just not a good situation. That is the verdict on that. This is getting late in the season now. We do have some frost coming up, it sounds like, so we'll see how this all goes before we get to dormancy and before we get to the winter period. Hopefully though, that gave you some good info today on these fescue plots, how I got things to recover so quickly. And thank you so much for watching this video. We'll see you next time.